Sophie Dee was 36 years old. She lived in a luxurious, custom-built home in a gated community in Henderson, Nevada, a world of manicured lawns and quiet streets that stood in stark contrast to the vibrant, chaotic energy of her professional prime. The house was a testament to her success, filled with art, a walk-in closet that rivaled a boutique, and a backyard oasis with a pristine pool. Her annual income, though she was now semi-retired from performing, was a very comfortable $400,000. A sum generated from her ownership of a successful talent management agency, residuals from her vast filmography, and savvy real estate investments. She was a legend, a MILF icon whose name was spoken with respect and a touch of nostalgia. But the woman who now enjoyed a life of serene luxury was a far cry from the ambitious, wide-eyed girl from a small, working-class village in Wales. That girl was named Lindsay, and her story was not one of desperate escape, but of a burning, audacious ambition to trade a small life for a grand one. Lindsay grew up in a valley where the rain was frequent and the future felt preordained. The daughter of a coal miner and a shop clerk, she was taught the value of hard work, but she dreamed of glamour, of a world beyond the green, damp hills. From a young age, she possessed a body that seemed destined for a different kind of stage. She was curvaceous in a way that was both powerful and soft, with a narrow waist that accentuated the dramatic sweep of her hips and the legendary, gravity-defying fullness of her all-natural breasts. They were her most striking feature, a source of both pride and constant attention. Her face was framed by a cascade of dark, wavy hair, and her eyes, a warm, sparkling brown, held a mischievous glint that promised fun and a sharp intelligence that yearned for more. She was beautiful, and she knew it, not with arrogance, but with the quiet understanding of a tool she was determined to use. While her classmates talked of settling down with local boys, Lindsay was secretly entering beauty pageants and modeling contests. She won a few, her photo appearing in local papers, but it only made her hunger for a bigger arena grow. She worked as a hairdresser, saving every pound, and spent her nights studying magazines, not for the articles, but for the geography of fame. She saw the models and actresses, their lives a glittering fantasy, and she wanted in. A customer at the salon, a well-traveled woman who recognized the ambition simmering beneath Lindsay's cheerful exterior, mentioned the opportunities for a girl with her assets in the adult film industry. It wasn't presented as a last resort, but as a potential gold mine. With a body like that, love, you could be a queen in California, the woman said, and the words took root. The decision wasn't born of trauma or desperation, but of cold, hard calculation. She saw it as a business venture, a fast track to the wealth and independence she craved. She broke the news to her parents gently, framing it as a modeling contract in America. Their disappointment was palpable, but she was undeterred. At 21, with a suitcase full of dreams and a resolve of steel, she boarded a plane to Los Angeles. She chose the name Sophie Dee, Sophie sounding sophisticated and international, Dee adding a touch of alliterative punch. Los Angeles was a shock, but it was the shock of arrival, not of despair. She was not intimidated, she was electrified. She found a reputable agent immediately, her stunning looks and undeniable Welsh charm opening doors. Her first professional shoot was a revelation. Unlike the grim, transactional scenario she had half prepared for, the set was professional, the crew efficient. When the hot lights hit her skin, she didn't feel exposed, she felt illuminated. The camera didn't just capture her body, it adored her. She had a natural, joyful presence, a playful wink in her brown eyes that made her performances feel less like acts and more like invitations to a party she was hosting. Her full, natural breasts, which had once drawn stares in Welsh pubs, were now her fortune, celebrated and filmed from every possible angle. She was paid $3,000 for a day's work. She held the check, her name, Sophie Dee, printed clearly on it, and felt a surge of triumph so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. She had bet on herself, and she had won. Her rise was swift and spectacular. She became one of the most sought-after performers in the industry. Her look, the voluptuous womanly figure, the friendly face, the cascade of dark hair, was unique and incredibly popular. She worked constantly, her name becoming synonymous with quality and a certain kind of bubbly, accessible sexuality. The money flowed in, and she was smart with it. She bought property, invested, and sent money home, slowly mending the rift with her family through the undeniable proof of her success. She embraced the hedonistic lifestyle of the mid-2000s, the parties, the travel, the adoration. Sophie Dee was a brand, a superstar, and Lindsay from the Welsh Valleys was a distant memory. The first part of her journey was a triumphant conquest. The second would be a more complex navigation of identity, longevity, and the price of living a dream she had so deliberately chosen. For nearly a decade, Sophie Dee reigned as one of the most recognizable and beloved stars in adult entertainment. She was a fixture on magazine covers, a perennial award winner, and a favorite on the convention circuit. Her life was a whirlwind of first-class flights, luxury hotels, and film sets. She had achieved everything she had set out to do. She was wealthy, famous, and free from the constraints of her humble beginnings. She bought her parents a new house, a concrete symbol of her success that finally silenced their doubts. The girl from the valleys had conquered Hollywood, or at least a very specific, lucrative corner of it. But the relentless pace began to take its toll. The industry that had once felt like a playground started to feel like a treadmill. The performances, once fueled by excitement and ambition, began to feel repetitive. The parties that had once been exhilarating now felt obligatory and empty. A quiet sense of ennui set in. Who was she when she wasn't Sophie Dee, the bubbly, ever-available fantasy? Lindsay felt like a ghost, a person she had left behind in another country, another lifetime. She had become her persona so completely that she no longer knew where the character ended and the real person began. The turning point was not a dramatic crash, but a slow, dawning realization. She was approaching 30, an age that, in the youth-obsessed corner of the industry she inhabited, began to feel ancient. She saw new, younger girls arriving every day, their ambition mirroring her own from a decade prior. She felt a shift. She was no longer the hot new thing, she was becoming an institution. While she was still in high demand, the roles began to subtly change, leaning more into the experienced and MILF categories. It was a transition she resisted at first, a reminder of her own mortality in a business that worshipped youth. This professional crossroads coincided with a profound personal loss. Her father, the quiet, hard-working miner who had never fully understood her career but had loved her unconditionally, passed away. The grief was a sledgehammer, cracking open the carefully constructed facade of Sophie Dee. Flying back to Wales for the funeral, walking the familiar, rain-soaked streets, she was confronted by the ghost of Lindsay. The friends she had grown up with were married, with children and roots. They had built lives, while she had built a brand. In that moment of grief and introspection, her glittering life in America felt strangely hollow, a beautiful, gilded cage. Returning to Los Angeles, she was different. The sparkle in her brown eyes was dimmed by grief and existential doubt. She couldn't summon the effortless, joyful energy that had defined her performances. She knew she needed a change, not just a vacation, but a fundamental shift. Using her sharp business acumen, which had always been the engine behind the Sophie Dee fantasy, she began to plan her exit strategy. She didn't want to be one of those performers who faded away. She wanted to control her narrative until the very end. She launched her own talent management agency, focusing on representing performers and guiding them through the pitfalls of the industry she knew so intimately. It was her way of giving back, of using her experience to protect a new generation. She also began to selectively produce content, moving behind the camera where she had more creative control and could craft the mature persona she had once resisted into a powerful, sophisticated brand of its own. The transition wasn't easy. Letting go of the constant validation of performing was a blow to her ego. There were moments of doubt, times she missed the adrenaline and the spotlight. But in building her agency, she found a new sense of purpose. The intelligence and ambition that had driven Lindsay to become Sophie Dee were now being channeled into building a legacy. She found a deeper, more sustainable satisfaction in nurturing careers than she ever had in being the star of the show. Now, at 36, Sophie Dee has found a peaceful equilibrium. The woman in the Henderson mansion is a blend of Lindsay's core strength and Sophie's hard-won wisdom. The mischievous glint has returned to her brown eyes, but it's now tempered with a calm, knowing depth. She enjoys her wealth and her peace, swimming in her pool, traveling for pleasure, and running her business with a sharp but fair hand. Her story is not one of corruption or victimhood, but of a woman who made a conscious, calculated choice and used it to build an empire. She entered the industry with her eyes wide open, conquered it on her own terms, and then, with the same deliberate intelligence, engineered her own graceful and powerful second act. She is proof that you can get everything you thought you wanted, and still have the courage to reinvent yourself when you discover it's no longer enough.